What if I told you that one family, a single bloodline, has been quietly controlling the world's money for over 250 years? Not a myth, not a conspiracy theory, a documented, verified, undeniable truth that the world's most powerful governments have never wanted you to fully understand. Who are the Rothschilds? Why does their name appear in every major war, every financial crisis, every central bank established in the last 2 centuries? Today, we go inside the most powerful family in human history. And what you are about to hear will change the way you see the world forever. Our story begins not in a palace, not in a grand banking hall, but in the most unlikely place imaginable, Frankfurt, Germany. 1744. A cramped, dark ghetto called Judengasse, the Street of Jews, where 3,000 people were forced to live in just 190 houses. No rights, no freedom, no future. Here, in a house marked with a red shield, Rothschild in German, a boy named Mayer Amschel was born, son of a small coin trader. No power, no connections, no future, or so the world believed. But inside, this boy burned an intelligence so sharp, so calculating, so patient, that it would one day reshape human civilization itself. From childhood, Mayer was obsessed with coins, not for their value, but for their stories. Ancient currencies, rare metals, historical artifacts. He studied them with the focus of a scholar and the instinct of a trader. This obsession would become his greatest weapon. At age 26, Mayer discovered that Prince Wilhelm of Hesse, one of the wealthiest men in all of Europe, was a passionate coin collector. Mayer spent years carefully acquiring the rarest coins he could find, selling them to the prince at prices so low they seemed like gifts. He was not after money. He was after something far more valuable: access. By 1769, his strategy had worked. Mayer earned the official title of court factor, supplier to the royal court of Hesse. Most men would have stopped there, satisfied. Mayer Amschel Rothschild was not most men. He was thinking not in months, not in years, but in generations. Mayer realized something that would change the world forever. Coins were finite. Physical gold was limited. But lending money, and collecting interest, was mathematically infinite. He opened a small banking house on Judengasse, and he gathered his 5 sons around a candlelit table and taught them one rule, one principle, that no Rothschild has ever forgotten in 250 years. Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws. Control the money, control the government, control everything. This was not ambition. This was a blueprint. And Mayer Amschel Rothschild had 5 sons to execute it across an entire continent. Mayer had 5 sons: Amschel, Salomon, Nathan, Kalman, and Jakob. And he made a decision so bold, so perfectly calculated, that no family in history had ever attempted it at this scale. He placed each son in a different European financial capital: Frankfurt, Vienna, London, Naples, Paris. 5 cities, 5 banks, 1 bloodline, 1 vision. The Rothschild network was born. Nathan, the most brilliant of the 5, arrived in London in 1798. He carried 20,000 pounds borrowed from his father and a mind that processed risk the way ordinary men process conversation. Within 10 years, Nathan Mayer Rothschild had built the most powerful private banking operation in British history. Governments came to him. He did not go to the government. Then came Napoleon. As Europe erupted in the most catastrophic wars the continent had ever seen, other bankers fled in panic, buried their gold, and prayed for survival. The Rothschilds did something extraordinary. They financed both sides of the conflict, lending to Britain, lending to the nations fighting Napoleon, and collecting interest from every government involved. War for the Rothschilds was not a catastrophe. It was a business model. June 18, 1815, the Battle of Waterloo. The fate of Europe hung in the balance on a single day of combat. Nathan Rothschild had built his own private courier network, faster, more reliable, more secretive than any government intelligence service. When Napoleon fell at Waterloo, Nathan knew the result a full 24 hours before any British official received the news. What Nathan did next has been debated, celebrated, and condemned by historians for 2 centuries. He walked to the London Stock Exchange. He looked deliberately like a man who had received terrible news. He began selling British government bonds, quietly at first, then with increasing urgency. Other traders watched. If Nathan Rothschild was selling, Britain must have lost. Panic swept the floor. Traders sold everything they had. Prices collapsed. And then, at the precise moment of maximum panic, Nathan's secret agents began buying. Every bond is available at rock-bottom prices. Hours later, when official news arrived that Britain had crushed Napoleon, bond prices exploded upward. In a single day, Nathan Rothschild had multiplied his family's fortune by a factor that historians estimate between 20 and 40 times. With this single operation, the Rothschild family effectively gained dominant influence over the Bank of England, the most powerful financial institution on the planet at that time. One family, one trade, one day. The financial architecture of the modern world had been permanently altered. Meanwhile, the other 4 brothers were establishing identical dominance across the continent. Salomon built the Vienna branch into the financial backbone of the Austrian Empire. Jacob in Paris became the banker of choice for the French government. Kalman in Naples financed the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. Amschel in Frankfurt held the center of the entire network together. 5 men, 5 capitals, one coordinated financial empire, the likes of which the world had never seen. By 1825, the Rothschilds had financed Brazil's independence. By 1835, they had taken control of Spain's mercury mines, the essential chemical required to process silver from the New World. They financed railways across Europe. They financed canals. They financed governments that needed money faster than they could collect the taxes. Every major infrastructure project on the continent ran through Rothschild capital. In America, Rothschild influence moved through carefully chosen intermediaries. Banking houses such as August Belmont and financial dynasties later connected to J.P. Morgan brought Rothschild capital into the New World. When America tore itself apart in the Civil War and desperately needed financing, it was institutions with Rothschild connections that held the leverage. Some historians argue that this influence shaped the very financial foundations of the United States itself. By the early 20th century, the Rothschild family had accumulated wealth estimated at the equivalent of $1 trillion in today's money. But here is what makes them unlike every other wealthy family in recorded history. They deliberately, systematically, and successfully hid it. While other dynasties built monuments to their wealth, the Rothschilds built walls of silence around theirs. They restructured their banking houses into private partnerships, invisible to public scrutiny. They moved assets through layers of holding companies, charitable foundations, and family trusts so complex that no outsider has ever fully mapped them. Forbes and Bloomberg do not list the Rothschild family on their billionaire rankings, not because the wealth does not exist, but because it was designed to be invisible. November 2nd, 1917. British Foreign Secretary Arthur James Balfour composed a letter. He did not address it to the President. He did not address it to the Prime Minister. He addressed it to Walter Rothschild, the second Baron Rothschild. In that letter, the British government committed to supporting the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine. A private family received a diplomatic letter that permanently redrew the map of the Middle East. The consequences of that letter are still reshaping our world today. The 20th century brought 2 world wars, the collapse of empires, the rise of central banking, and the creation of global financial institutions. Through all of it, the Rothschild name appeared in archives, in diplomatic cables, in the minutes of meetings that shaped the modern world. Not always visibly, not always loudly, but always present. Today, Rothschild & Company remains one of the most powerful independent financial advisory firms on earth. They advise governments on debt restructuring. They advise corporations on mergers worth hundreds of billions of dollars. They operate quietly from offices in 40 countries. The family that began in a ghetto on Judengasse still sits at tables where the financial future of nations is decided. So what is the true lesson of the Rothschild Empire? It is not about conspiracy. It is not about hatred or fear. It is about something more profound and more instructive than any of that. It is about the extraordinary generational power of a single idea, executed with patience, discipline, and absolute unity across 250 years. Mayor Amschel Rothschild died in 1812, but before he died, he left his children one final instruction. He told them always to work together, never to allow an outsider to know the full extent of what they owned, and never, under any circumstances, to allow their wealth to be divided. 250 years later, the Red Shield still stands. The family still operates. The empire, however hidden, however restructured, however invisible to ordinary eyes, endures. The Rothschilds did not just build a banking dynasty, they built a system. And systems, when designed correctly, outlast everything, even time itself. This story is documented in historical records, academic research, and the Rothschild family's own archived correspondence, held at the Rothschild Archive in London, one of the most significant private historical collections in the world.